Aisha Jones felt her heart beat faster as she stepped onto the airplane. She held her daughter Maya in one arm and carried a heavy diaper bag in the other hand. Maya was 8 months old and too curious to sit still. Aisha balanced the baby. In the bag, steering with her elbow, a car seat carrier that rolled on tiny wheels. She smiled at the flight attendant at the door and said, "Good morning. I have my seat over there." The attendant nodded with a polite but tired expression. Aisha turned and walked down the narrow aisle, her feet careful not to trip on other passengers' bags. When Aisha reached row 7, seat A, she set Maya on her hip and lifted the car seat onto her lap. She unzipped the diaper bag and took out a soft blanket, wrapping Maya to keep her warm. Next, she tried to fit the car seat base onto the empty seat beside her. She pulled the strap through and clicked it into the belt buckle. The car seat clicked into place, but she realized she needed a little help to tighten the belt. She pressed the button on the side and tugged at the strap, but it felt stuck. Maya grew restless, shifting in her mother's arms and squeaking with a tiny cry. Aisha looked around and raised her hand to call an attendant. She whispered to Maya, "Hold on, sweetheart. Mama needs a moment." She saw a flight attendant passing by with a clipboard. The attendant had dark hair and a neat bun and a name tag that read Carter. Aisha's voice was soft but urgent. "Excuse me, could you help me secure this car seat? I need a hand with the strap." Carter glanced at Maya, then back at Aisha and said, "I'm busy right now. I'll be with you when I can." Her voice had no warmth. Aisha's shoulders sagged. She said, "Please, it won't take a minute." Carter looked away and walked toward the front of the plane without another word. Aisha felt her chest tighten. She took a deep breath so Maya would not feel her mother's worry. She tried again, pulling on the belt with one hand and holding the car seat with the other. The strap would not tighten all the way. Aisha's arms began to shake. She set Maya down on the seat gently, placing her on her lap again. Maya reached for Aisha's hair and giggled before bursting into louder cries. The baby's tears surprised Aisha's nerves. She looked down at Maya's bright eyes glassing over with baby tears. Aisha wished she could calm Maya more quickly. A new flight attendant, a man with a kind face, walked down the aisle pushing a cart of drinks. He paused when he saw Aisha struggling. Aisha caught his eye and smiled, trying to ask for help. He raised his hands in a kind gesture, but then he looked at the other attendant by the door and nodded. He rolled his cart on without stopping. Aisha realized that nobody on the crew was willing to help right now. She remembered a rule she read about online. Flight attendants must assist passengers who need help with seats and children. But in that moment, Aisha felt very alone. Tears gathered in Aisha's eyes. She tightened her grip on Maya and clutched the diaper bag strap for support. A mother sitting across the aisle, a woman with silver hair and gentle eyes, leaned toward Aisha and whispered, "Do you need help?" Aisha nodded. She pointed to the car seat base. The other mother carefully placed her tray table up and took the strap in her hands. She gave a small nod and clicked the belt into place. The car seat locked into position. Aisha breathed a sigh of relief. She smiled at the kind stranger and mouthed, "Thank you." The stranger smiled back and returned to her seat. Aisha settled Maya in the car seat. She lifted her little daughter's arms through the harness. The soft straps held Maya snugly, but not too tight. Maya's crying slowed. Aisha reached into her diaper bag and took out a small bottle of formula powder and a cup of warm water she had brought from the cafe. She mixed the powder and water in a sterilized bottle. As she twisted on the top, Maya looked at her mother with curious eyes and reached her tiny hand for the bottle. Aisha gave her the bottle. Maya latched on and began to feed, her lips moving in calm rhythm. Each suckle made Aisha's chest feel lighter. With Maya feeding, Aisha turned her attention to her seatbelt. She clicked it and pulled the strap tight. She glanced around, hoping to see a flight attendant to ask for warm water for an extra bottle when the plane jolted forward. The engines roared to life. The familiar hum of power vibrated through the cabin. Aisha held Maya close. She whispered, "We're going up, baby." Maya pulled back on the bottle and looked out the window. Clouds floated by like soft cotton. Aisha smiled at her daughter's wonder. After a few minutes, the captain's voice came over the speakers. "Welcome on board, ladies and gentlemen. We will be departing shortly. Please be sure your seatbelts are fastened and all personal items stowed." Aisha felt the plane tilt as it taxied. She glanced at the seatbelt sign above her head. It glowed red. She studied Maya's face. The little girl finished her bottle and looked up at her mother. Aisha patted her lap gently and said, "You did so well." She pulled a cloth from the bag and dabbed at the tiny smudge of formula on Maya's cheek. "God." Maya cooed and rubbed her cheek. A gentle chime sounded as another passenger requested water from the attendant. Aisha realized she needed to ask for another cup of warm water. She looked around. The same attendant, Carter, stood by the counter cleaning glasses. He looked busy. Aisha took a breath, left Maya secure, and raised her hand. Carter noticed and approached. Aisha said, "Excuse me, can I please have another cup of warm water for my daughter? I need to mix another bottle." Carter stared and then said, "We're not allowed to give water. Should have gotten it before takeoff." Aisha's voice caught in her throat. "I did, but I need more." "It's for my baby." Carter looked offended. "That's not my problem." He turned and walked away. Aisha's cheeks burned with shame. She looked down and held the car seat handle. The aisle lights shone softly on the mother and baby. And Maya looked back at Aisha with questioning eyes. Aisha felt tears rise but blinked them back. She said softly, "Let me see that bottle." She took Maya's empty bottle and put it on her tray table. She folded her arms, leaning back against her seat to think. She thought of her morning. She had woken before dawn to feed Maya, change diapers, and pack everything they needed. The stroller, the extra clothes, the toys, the snacks. Of the long drive to the airport, through early traffic. Arms aching from carrying Maya. She had made it this far, and she refused to let this small denial ruin their day. Aisha sat quietly as the plane climbed above the clouds. She held Maya's hand through the straps. She felt the gentle rocking of the plane like a cradle in the sky. Maya yawned, her eyes heavy. Aisha touched her cheek with a gentle finger. "You're tired, aren't you?" Maya blinked slowly. The engine's hum sounded like a soft song. Aisha closed her eyes for a moment, feeling Maya's steady breath. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The other passengers settled into their seats. Someone across the aisle read a book. Someone near the front slept. The flight lights dimmed slightly to ease the climb. Aisha leaned her head against the window frame. She took out her phone. She opened the Airline's app and tapped on Customer Service. Her fingers shook as she typed, "My daughter needs an extra bottle of formula, and the flight attendant refused to help. Please advise." She paused. She remembered that sometimes messages to a general inbox go unread. To speak directly to someone in charge? She searched online for the airline CEO contact information. Her heart pounded as she found a public email address. She paused again. Would sending directly seem rude? She knew she was tired. She knew she needed help. She tapped the send button. Aisha put her phone away and closed her eyes again. She felt. Maya's head rested against the side of the car seat. The baby was finally quiet. Aisha's chest felt tight but hopeful. She whispered, "Good job, Maya." She imagined someone in the control room reading her email, realizing that she needed help. She prayed that before they landed, someone would bring her warm water. She felt the gentle movement of the plane as it leveled off. The lights above her glowed soft purple. She took a deep breath. She looked at her daughter sleeping and thought, "We'll be okay." Aisha's cheeks burned as Maya's cries echoed down the aisle. She had tried once and been turned away. Now she summoned all her courage and raised her hand again, hoping a different attendant might show kindness. A young woman with bright red lipstick and a tight bun passed by. Aisha caught her eye and said, "Please, can you help me tighten this strap?"
"Yes."
The attendant paused, glanced at the baby, and then at her watch. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said in a clipped voice, "but I'm needed in first class right now." Aisha's heart sank. The attendant walked off, leaving her alone with her daughter's desperate wails. Maya's face was red from crying. Her tiny fists banged on the car seat's side. Aisha felt tears burn behind her eyes. She swallowed hard, trying not to cry herself. She looked around the cabin. Some passengers stared. A man across the aisle pretended to read a magazine but peeked over the top. An elderly couple whispered to each other. A teenage girl offered a sympathetic smile but said nothing. Aisha realized she could not rely on the crew. She needed a plan. She leaned forward and unbuckled Maya from her arms. She set the baby gently into the car seat base and clicked the buckle as best she could. It rattled slightly under Maya's weight. Aisha held the strap end in one hand and the buckle in the other, but the strap would not pull tight. She yanked with both arms, trying to find purchase. Her coat sleeve slipped on the slick fabric, and she lost her grip. The strap twisted. Aisha let out a frustrated sound and took a deep breath. She sat back, wiped her damp cheeks on her sleeve, and tried again. Behind her, the hum of the engines grew louder. The flight attendants moved with practiced steps down the aisle, checking passenger belts. None paused for Aisha. She felt panic rise. Maya's cries grew sharper. A few other mothers with sleeping babies in their seats looked away. Aisha felt invisible. She wanted to cry out, "Please, this is my child." But she managed only a small moan. She closed her eyes and thought of home. She pictured her apartment in Atlanta, the pale blue walls of Maya's nursery, the soft teddy bear in the crib. She remembered the day she brought Maya home from the hospital, her tiny fingers wrapped around Aisha's thumb. She told herself she could handle this. She had faced hard days before, working 2 jobs, juggling school, raising a child on her own. She could handle a broken strap. Aisha opened her eyes and steadied her shoulders. She would find a way. She looked at the tray table beside her. It was empty. She leaned forward and lifted it up. It clicked into place. She used it as a work surface. With one hand on the table edge and the other on the seat's edge, she yanked the strap again. Slowly, the slack drew out. The car seat shifted forward and pressed firmly against the seat back. Aisha let out a sigh of relief. Maya's crying slowed. Kaya smiled and leaned in to kiss the baby's forehead. "You're okay now," she whispered. Maya blinked up at her mother, her tears still wet, but her breathing even. Aisha felt a small victory warm her chest. She patted the infant's tiny feet and began to fasten Maya into the harness straps. The soft buckles clicked, and Aisha pulled. The straps snug. Maya wriggled, but settled quickly, her exhaustion overtaking her distress. Aisha reached into her bag and pulled out a soft muslin cloth. She dabbed at the tears and formula smudges on Maya's cheeks. The little girl sucked her finger, then drifted into a small nap. Aisha allowed herself a moment to breathe and to marvel at Maya's resilience. She tucked stray hairs behind Maya's ears and smoothed the blanket over her lap. All around her, the cabin was settling. People read books, watched screens, or dozed. No one offered help. Aisha felt both proud and hollow. She had done this herself, but she should not have had to. She remembered the airline's policy about helping families, seen in tiny print on the website she booked through. But policies mean nothing when staff choose not to follow them. A gentle chime sounded as the flight attendant delivered a soda to a passenger ahead. Aisha watched as the attendant snapped the can open and handed it over with a smile. The attendant looked over, saw Aisha and Maya, and then looked away. Aisha's stomach twisted. She bit her lip to stop herself from saying something sharp. She pulled out her phone and opened the camera. She snapped a quick photo of the car seat strapped in. She knew she might need proof later. She then opened a note and wrote, "Strap too loose, requested help twice, refused both times." She paused, thinking how to file a complaint once they landed. But she also knew that by then, the moment would be gone. She needed something done now. Aisha glanced at her watch. There were 15 minutes from takeoff. The seatbelt sign still shone. She tucked her phone back into her coat pocket. She reached out and stroked Maya's soft cheek. "You did so well, baby," she murmured. "Mama's here." She patted the seat beside her gently once more to check stability. The car seat was snug and safe. She nodded with satisfaction. Maya's eyes fluttered open. She looked around, blinking. She recognized Aisha's face and let out a tiny giggle. Aisha's heart lifted. She'd been so focused on the strap she forgot what a joy Maya could be. She reached down and tickled her little toes. Maya kicked her feet and cooed. Aisha laughed softly. The sound was light in her chest. She lifted Maya's small hand and kissed the fingers. In that moment, Aisha almost forgot the attendant's refusal. She felt grateful for falling asleep, safely in her mother's lap. She wished she could tell Maya how proud she was of her calmness. But the plane's engines rumbled as they prepared to glide down the runway. Aisha snapped from the moment and tucked Maya's hand into the blanket. The plane lurched forward, rolling faster and faster. Aisha leaned into the seat back. She held Maya close with one arm. The wheels screeched as they flew down the runway. Aisha felt the plane lift, her body pressing into the seat. Her grip tightened around Maya, but the car seat held firm. The world outside the window turned upside down, and then they soared above the clouds. The hum of the engines was a low heartbeat. Aisha held her breath for a moment and then let it out slowly. She closed her eyes and felt Maya's steady breathing through the harness. A sense of peace settled over her. They were flying, safe in the sky. She looked around at the other passengers. All were still. Some slept. Some stared out the window. No one helped, but they were all part of this journey. Aisha leaned back and smoothed her hair. She reached into her bag for a granola bar. She broke off a piece, took a bite, and felt energy return to her limbs. She thought of the day ahead in Chicago, the conference she would speak at about women entrepreneurs. She had worked hard to get there. She refused to let one rude attendant ruin her trip. She unwrapped Maya's blanket and gently adjusted it so her daughter's shoulders were warm. She checked the car seat one more time, running her fingers along the strap. It was tight and secure. Aisha smiled with accomplishment. She looked at Maya's face, peaceful now in sleep. She whispered, "Rest, my love. Mama's got you." Several rows ahead, a flight attendant finally passed by toward the back of the plane. Aisha raised her hand tentatively and called, "Excuse me, could I have some water, please?" The attendant paused, looked at Maya, then at Aisha's seatbelt. She shook her head and kept walking. Aisha's heart sank again, but she forced a nod of understanding. She would find water later. Aisha closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the gentle vibration of the cabin. No. She thought of her mother, waiting at home, of phone calls and busy nights. She thought of how important it was to speak up for herself and for Maya. She remembered the email she sent to the CEO back on the ground. And she felt hope that change could happen. She let her head fall back against the headrest. Maya's breathing was soft. Aisha released a deep breath she did not know she held. She thought, now that the strap was tight, now that Maya was calm, maybe she could just relax. She let the rhythm of the plane rock her lightly. She looked forward to the moment they landed, and she could stretch her legs. For now, Aisha sat in. The silence, a mother and her child amid strangers, safe and strong. She smiled to herself and whispered, "We did it." Aisha settled back into her seat, holding Maya gently in her lap. The cabin lights were low now, and most passengers had closed their eyes or turned toward their screens. Maya's eyes remained bright, curious about the small world around her. Aisha stroked her daughter's cheek and felt a mix of relief and frustration. She had managed to secure the car seat and calm Maya, but the attendant's refusal to help still weighed on her. She knew she needed more formula and warm water before the next feeding, and she could not rely on the crew. She reached for her phone and opened her email app. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She thought about typing a complaint to the Airline's customer service, but she felt that would vanish into an impersonal system. Then she remembered the contact information she found earlier. A public email address for the CEO. She thought about how bold it felt to write there directly. But she also knew she needed someone with authority to hear her. If she waited until after landing, she might grow too tired or lose her resolve. She tapped compose and addressed the message to the CEO. In the subject line she wrote, "Urgent. Denied assistance for my baby on flight." She paused, then began the body of the email. She wrote simply but firmly, "Dear Mr. Johnson, today I flew on your airline from Atlanta to Chicago with my 8-month-old daughter. I asked a flight attendant for help securing my car seat and for warm water to mix. Formula. She refused both times. I felt helpless and embarrassed in front of other passengers. I believe this refusal violates your company policy and basic courtesy. Please investigate and help me get the assistance we need." She read it over, making sure her tone stayed calm. No bad words, no shouting, just a clear account. Next, she added details: the attendant's name, Carter, and the seat number. She noted the time she had asked just after takeoff, and again, about 20 minutes later. She ended the email. "Thank you for your attention. I hope you will act quickly so no other parent has to face this alone." She hit send. Her heart thumped as the message flew into the electronic world. Aisha tucked her phone away and looked at Maya. The baby yawned and closed her eyes. Aisha felt a gentle wave of pride. She had taken a stand, even when she felt small. She held her daughter close, breathing in the soft scent of baby shampoo. She thought of her own mother, how she had taught Aisha to stand up for herself and speak her mind when something was wrong. The hum of the engines and the quiet murmur of other passengers became a gentle lullaby. Aisha closed her eyes, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease. She let the motion of the plane rock her, just as she did when she soothed Maya at home. She felt grateful for this moment of calm. After a few minutes, Aisha opened her eyes and checked her phone. No reply. But she saw her email in the sent folder. She hoped it would reach someone important. She decided to write a note in her journal, a small notebook she kept for her thoughts and memories. She slipped it out of her bag and wrote, "Today, I felt shame, fear, and frustration. But I also felt strength. I spoke up for my daughter and me." She closed the notebook and smiled at Maya, who was sleeping soundly in the car seat. Suddenly, the seatbelt sign dinged off. A soft chime echoed through the cabin. Aisha realized that passengers could now move about, and she carefully lifted Maya from the car seat and held her close, rocking her gently. The baby stretched her arms and looked at her mother with curious eyes. Aisha whispered, "Let's see if we can find water somewhere." She stood, carrying Maya, and walked down the aisle toward the back of the plane where the galleys were. She glanced at the doors of the bathroom, but she was not sure if she could fill a cup there. The flight attendant station was empty. Aisha pressed the button to call an attendant. A different flight attendant, a tall man with a friendly face, answered. "Yes, ma'am," he asked. Aisha felt her heart flutter. "Hi, can I please have some warm water for my baby's formula?" she asked calmly. The attendant looked surprised and nodded. "Of course. One moment." He disappeared behind the curtain and returned with a plastic cup of water, warm but not hot. "Here you go," he said kindly. Aisha's relief flooded her. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice soft. Maya watched the cup in her mother's hand with wide eyes. Aisha carried Maya back down the aisle to her seat. She held her daughter on her lap and poured the water into a clean bottle. She added the formula scoop, screwed on the top, and shook gently. Maya watched the motion with interest, then latched on as soon as Aisha offered the bottle. Her little mouth worked steadily, and soon she was calm again. Aisha felt a warmth in her chest. The kind attendant had helped without a fuss, she thought. About how differently things might have been if the first attendant only showed that kindness. Her thoughts drifted to company policies and training. She wondered if the CEO would read her email and see how important compassion was in flight service. As Maya finished her bottle, Aisha burped her gently and wiped her mouth. She strapped Maya back into the car seat, now secure and comfortable. The baby's little eyes began to flutter closed. Aisha settled her back into her seat and held the car seat closed so Maya could nap. Then she leaned back and closed her eyes herself, trusting her daughter to sleep a bit. During the rest of the flight, Aisha felt calmer. She watched the clouds drift below and imagined the city lights of Chicago waiting for them. Every so often, she opened her phone to check her email, hoping for any reply. She saw one message from customer relations thanking her for feedback and saying they would look into it. She felt grateful, but still wanted the CEO's office to respond. When the captain's voice came over the loudspeaker announcing their descent, Aisha snapped awake. She unstrapped Maya and lifted her to her chest. The baby squirmed and then looked out the window at the dark patchwork of land beneath them. Aisha buckled herself in, holding Maya firmly. She felt the plane dip as it landed on the runway with a gentle bump. The wheels screeched, and they rolled toward the gate. After the plane stopped, the seatbelt sign turned off. Aisha gathered her things carefully, one item at a time. She lifted Maya and carried her off the plane, step by step. In the jet bridge, she paused and checked her phone again. There was a new email from the CEO's office. She opened it with trembling fingers. "Dear Miss Jones," it began. "Thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. We apologize for the poor service you and your daughter received on Flight 128. We take this very seriously. We are conducting an internal review and will take appropriate action. A member of our management team will contact you within 24 hours with more details." Aisha's eyes filled with tears this time of relief and gratitude. She held Maya closer and whispered, "They heard us, baby." As she walked through the airport terminal to baggage claim, Aisha thought about what had happened. She felt proud that she had asked for help, had written the email, and had spoken up for her daughter. She knew the road ahead might include more calls or meetings with the airline. She also knew that standing up for herself and her child was the right thing to do. She smiled to herself, imagining that other parents would soon benefit from the changes she had set in motion. Aisha reached the carousel, retrieved her suitcase, and headed toward the exit. She glanced back at the airport shops and thought of ordering a travel mug. She thought of calling her mother to tell her about the flight and the response from the CEO above all. She thought of Maya's bright eyes and the comfort of hearing her daughter's soft breathing. Aisha felt stronger than she had in days. She had defended her little girl, and in doing so, she had reminded herself of her own strength. And with that strength, she would keep moving forward. Aisha stepped off the plane and felt a small thrill of hope as she saw her phone light up again. It was the airline's customer relations team, letting her know they had begun looking into what happened. She tucked Maya close and smiled at her daughter's sleepy face. Aisha had expected an apology, but she did not expect the next call. That afternoon, as Aisha settled into a quiet corner of her hotel room, her phone rang. The number was from headquarters. Her heart pounded. "Shh," she answered. "Hello, this is Aisha." Calm, professional voice responded. "Ms. Jones, thank you for speaking with me. I'm Laura Simmons, the manager of in-flight service at our airline. I'm calling because we take your experience very seriously." Aisha straightened in her chair and nodded. Though Laura could not see her, Laura explained that they had reviewed the flight, attendant reports, and watched the cabin video. They confirmed that an attendant, Carter, had denied Aisha's requests. They said this went against airline policy and basic human decency. Aisha listened as Laura apologized deeply for the distress Aisha and Maya faced. She felt a warm glow of relief at last. Someone was listening. Laura told Aisha that Carter had been placed on unpaid leave while they completed their investigation. She said the airline would provide a full report to Aisha in a few days. The company also wanted to offer Aisha and Maya a complimentary upgrade on her next flight, plus a travel voucher. "We hope this shows our regret and our commitment too." "Improvement," Laura said. "Shh," Aisha thanked her, her voice soft but firm. She felt that her words had power. After the call, Aisha sat quietly with Maya in her lap. The little girl yawned and rubbed her eyes. Aisha rocked her gently and thought of how far they had come. What began as a struggle on a crowded plane had turned into a chance for real change. She felt proud of herself. She had faced fear and stood up for her child. She realized that others might learn from what happened. That evening, back in her hotel room, Aisha opened her laptop and wrote a post on her public Facebook page. She wrote in simple words, "Today I flew with my baby and was denied help. I spoke up, reached out to the CEO, and the airline is taking action. No parent should feel helpless. Thank you for your support." She added a photo of her and Maya hugging after landing. She clicked post and watched as reactions came in. Within minutes, friends, family, and strangers left supportive comments. Some called Aisha brave. Others shared their own stories of being ignored or mistreated. Mother from California wrote that her toddler had fallen ill on a flight and she, too, had begged for help. A retired flight attendant from Texas said she was proud that Aisha had pushed for accountability. Aisha read each comment and felt a deep sense of connection. She was no longer alone. She was part of a community of parents and travelers who demanded respect. The next morning, Aisha woke to an email from a reporter at a local news station. They had seen her Facebook post and wanted to interview her. Aisha hesitated. She rarely spoke to the press, but then she thought of the other parents who might be afraid to speak up. She realized sharing her story more widely could help them, so she agreed. Later that day, the reporter met Aisha at a small cafe near her hotel. He asked about everything that happened on the plane, the crying baby, the denied requests, and her decision to email the CEO. Aisha described how Carter had refused to help secure the car seat and to provide warm water for formula. She explained how she felt helpless, but pushed through embarrassment to demand change. Her words were clear and honest. The interview aired that evening. Aisha watched as the news anchor described how a single mother's call to the CEO had led to a top manager taking action. On the bright screen, Aisha saw images of a plane's interior and the words policy change in bold letters. The story closed by noting that the airline promised new training for all crew members on family assistance. Aisha felt a sense of victory. Over the next 2 days, Airline released a statement on its website and social media channels. They described the specific steps they would take: mandatory sensitivity workshops for flight attendants, UPDATED guidelines on helping families, and a hotline for parents to request assistance before boarding. The airline even named a family care advocate on some flights. Aisha saw the words and smiled. She had helped spark these improvements. Meanwhile, on her own social media, Aisha's post had reached thousands of people. Parents thanked her for speaking out. Some travelers pledged to mention the new policy on their next flights. A few even suggested airlines worldwide adopt similar measures. Aisha's heart warmed at the thought that her single story might ripple out and protect countless families. Then, just as promised, Laura from headquarters called again. She told Aisha that the investigation was complete and that Carter had been officially terminated for unprofessional conduct and refusing to follow safety policies. Laura expressed regret that Aisha had endured humiliation and distress. She said the airline would donate to a charity that supports single mothers in Aisha's name. Aisha felt tears of relief and gratitude. She thanked Laura, feeling that her struggle had led to truth and justice. That night, Aisha sat on her hotel bed and reflected. She thought about the fear that had gripped her at first when Maya cried and the attendant walked away. She remembered the shame that washed over her when she saw the refusal on Carter's face. But she also thought of her own courage, how she typed that email to the CEO late at night, how she held her ground when asking again for water, how she agreed to share her story with the world. Aisha closed her eyes for a moment and heard Maya's soft breathing. She felt gratitude for her daughter's patience and for the strangers and the kind attendant who finally helped. She thought of the passengers who watched silently, and she wondered if they, too, would feel a responsibility to help other families in need. She hoped so. In the days that followed, Aisha flew home with Maya on a different airline. Boarded, she saw a notice by the gate, "We welcome families, please ask us for help." She smiled at the sign and felt a gentle pride. She thought of her own journey, how a small denial on one flight had turned into a movement for better care. She squeezed Maya's hand and whispered, "We did good, baby." As the plane took off, Aisha looked out at the sunrise. She remembered the words she wrote in her journal. "Today I felt shame and fear, but also strength." Now those words rang truer than ever. She was no longer just a passenger or a single mom. She was a voice for change, a reminder that every person deserves help, respect, and kindness even at 35,000 feet. Aisha woke early on the morning of her final flight home. Sunlight peeked through the hotel curtains as she stretched and yawned. She scooped Maya from her crib, tucking a soft blanket around her. The little girl blinked sleepily, her cheeks still rosy from nap time. Aisha carried her into the bathroom and washed Maya's face with a warm cloth. She smiled at the baby's bright eyes and whispered, "Ready to go home, sweetheart?" Maya reached for Aisha's hair and gave a small giggle as if she understood, down in the lobby. Aisha checked out and rolled her suitcase toward the shuttle that would take them to the airport. She held Maya in one arm and kept the folds of her coat over the car seat. At the curb, the shuttle driver helped with their bags and carefully lifted the car seat onto the bus. Aisha thanked him softly and settled into a seat by the window. Maya cooed and gurgled, playing with a small toy tucked in the car seat. Aisha felt a calm pride in her chest. Their journey had begun with a struggle, but it was ending with hope. At the airport, Aisha found the check-in counter of the new airline she chose. A friendly agent scanned her documents and smiled when she saw Maya. "Traveling with your little one?" the agent asked. Aisha nodded. "Yes, she's 8 months old." The agent handed Aisha a boarding pass for 2 seats, one for herself, and one reserved for the car seat. "We're glad to have you," the agent said. "Let us know if you need anything." Aisha's shoulders relaxed. She carried the car seat through security and onto the gate area, where she found a bench near a charging station. Maya was still full of energy. She kicked her little feet and grabbed at her bottle, which Aisha had already mixed with formula. After feeding, the baby reached for the window. Aisha lifted her so she could watch planes taxi by. "Look, Maya," she said softly, pointing. "That one's going to Cleveland." Maya cooed and followed the movement with her eyes. Aisha laughed, feeling light. It was such a simple pleasure, but today it meant everything. She remembered the fear of being refused help before, and she felt grateful to be treated kindly now. When the boarding announcement came, Aisha stood carefully. She held the car seat and guided Maya toward the jet bridge. At the door, a flight attendant greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome aboard," the attendant said, taking the car seat. "Let me help you get that set up." Relief washed over Aisha. She placed Maya back into the car seat and clicked it securely into the belt. The attendant tightened the strap with a gentle pull and patted the seat to check firmness. Aisha thanked her, her voice a little shaky with emotion. "Thank you so much," she said. "That means a lot." The attendant smiled again. "Of course, we want you both comfortable." Aisha settled into her seat next to Maya and buckled her belt. The cabin was calm, and the other passengers smiled at Maya's curious gaze. The engines revved, and the plane moved down the runway, lifting them into the sky. Aisha held Maya's hand through the straps, feeling the little fingers curl around her own. She thought back to that first flight when she felt powerless. Now she felt in control, strong in her role as both mother and advocate. During the flight, the attendants offered Aisha warm water for formula without hesitation. One brought a carafe and poured carefully into a cup, asking if it was warm enough. Aisha nodded and quietly mixed another bottle. Maya drank with contentment, her hunger satisfied. Aisha noticed the other parents watching. A woman a few rows back leaned forward and mouthed "thank you," as if she saw Aisha's relief. Aisha smiled and nodded back. She imagined that small act of kindness carrying forward. After landing, Aisha collected their bags and carried Maya to the ground transport area. She felt the soft weight of her daughter in her arms and the solid grip of her suitcase. Outside, a taxi waited. The driver helped load the car seat into the trunk. Aisha climbed in and gave the driver the address of her home. The cityscape passed. By buildings glowing in the afternoon light, Maya drifted off to sleep, her head resting on Aisha's shoulder. That evening, back in her own kitchen, Aisha unpacked groceries and set a pot of soup to warm. Maya sat in her high chair watching. Her mother with wide eyes, Aisha stirred the soup and hummed, feeling the comfort of home. She thought about the past days, the initial flight where she felt ignored, the email to the CEO, the calls with customer relations, the news interview, and finally this smooth trip back. She felt each moment had taught her something important. About her own voice and courage, she reached down and wiped Maya's face with a soft cloth. The baby smiled at her, showing toothless gums. Aisha laughed, scooping her in her arms. "You're my brave girl," she said. Maya cooed and rapped, her arms around Aisha's neck. Aisha sat on the kitchen floor, holding her daughter close as she ate her soup. The warmth spread through her body, and she felt a deep peace. After Maya's bedtime, Aisha sat at her small desk and opened her journal. She wrote slowly, "Today we came home. I felt calm and strong. I know I made a difference." She paused, thinking of the steps she took. She wrote about the policy changes the airline promised and the training they announced. She wrote about the hotline for families and the kindness of strangers. She thought, perhaps other airlines would follow too. Aisha closed the journal and reached for her phone. She opened her social media account and saw messages from friends, family, and strangers. Many thanked her for standing up. Some asked how they could file complaints if they ever needed to. Aisha replied with links to resources and tips for polite but firm requests. She felt a sense of community, a web of support that stretched beyond her apartment walls. Later, she called her mother. They spoke about Maya's giggles and the warm soup. Then Aisha told her mother about the final flight and the changes she saw. Her mother's voice trembled with pride. "You taught me something too?" her mother said. "Never be afraid to ask for help, but also to ask for respect." Aisha smiled, her heart full. Before bed, Aisha checked on Maya in her crib. The baby slept peacefully, one hand curled on the blanket. Aisha placed a soft nightlight near the crib, casting a gentle glow. She whispered, "Sleep well, my love." Maya stirred, but stayed asleep. Aisha turned off the overhead light and closed the door softly. In her own room, Aisha lay in bed with her journal on her chest. The city lights outside flickered like stars. She thought of the journey she and Maya had taken from fear to empowerment, from silence to voice. She felt a steady confidence she had not known before, a belief that one person's stand could spark change. She closed her eyes and let the quiet wash over her. In the days and weeks that followed, Aisha heard from the airline again. They invited her to speak at a training session for flight attendants on compassionate care. She agreed, wanting to share her story and help prevent other parents from feeling alone. She prepared her talk in simple, honest words, imagining the life of a single mother holding a crying baby in a crowded aisle. She wanted those attendants to know that a small act of kindness could mean the world. On the day of the workshop, Aisha stood in front of a group of flight attendants, smiling at their attentive faces. Maya sat on her lap, wearing a small dress, and sleepily reaching for her mama's hand. Aisha spoke about confidence, about asking for help, and about the power of respect. She told how the right person, at the right moment, could change everything. The attendants nodded, some with tears in their eyes. Afterward, an attendant came forward. Her name tag read Carter. It was the same name as the one who refused help. Whoa. But this Carter was different, a young woman with kindness in her eyes. She said, "Thank you, Miss Jones. Your story helped me understand my role better." Aisha nodded, surprised. This Carter had joined the workshop and learned. She realized that change could come, even from those who had once made mistakes. Aisha looked at Maya, who reached for the new attendant with a giggle. The three of them formed a small circle of understanding. Aisha felt hope in that moment, hope that empathy would spread through each cabin, that every baby and parent flying would find help when they needed it. As Aisha walked out of the training room, she felt the same strength she first felt when she typed that email to the CEO. She felt that her journey was never just about one flight, but about the journeys of many families who fly the skies every day. She thought of her final journal entry. "We did it, Maya. We made the sky kinder for everyone." And in the quiet that followed, she knew it was only the beginning.